Guys, you know what it is. It's episode 38 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm gonna get straight to it. So check it out, man. I know you guys want me to go on and on and on and on and continue to keep talking about Corcoran. And honestly, I wish I could give you guys another 40 episodes. I wish I could tell you about another 15 squabbles so I could tell you guys more about the big bop, big boop, oh, shoot, but unfortunately, I can only talk about the things that I went through, my experiences while I was there. You know, I think I kind of spread this out as much as I could over the course of what, 5, 6, 7, 8 different episodes. I try to give you guys the mental part of it, the physical part of it, everything that I could think of so that you guys would have the full experience, almost like trying to put you in the moment. The descriptions that I gave you guys, putting you there, what we were thinking, you know, how everything happened. Hopefully, I was able to hit a home run with that. You know, that was my intentions. Now, like I said, I wish I could continue to keep talking about it, continue to tell you guys more. I mean, I think I've elaborated on everything as much as I possibly could. You know, when I sit back, sometimes when I sit back and I think about my past prison experience and reflect back on Corcoran, there's no doubt about it that Corcoran is a huge part of it. The Gladiator Wars is something, when I reflect back on it, it's a figment of my past. When I think about it, you know, I gave those people some of the best years of my life. They got my 20s, they got my 30s, they got some of my 40s, most of them. But when I think back on it and I think about everything that I went through in Corcoran, you know, our prison experiences, they shape us, they make us who we are today. And somehow, some way, all those experiences, the things that we've been through, they all mold us into it's a big melting pot of who we are right now. And I know a lot of guys, they claim that, no, I don't talk about prison, or I don't think about it. It's in my past, and you know, that's where it's gonna stay, and that's bullshit. You know, we all think about prison. We all think about it. It's a part of our past. It's a huge part of our past. And you know, I reflect back on it, but when I do, when I think about it, it's just a phase that I went through. I cannot see myself ever going back to prison now. I'm older. Time has elapsed. Obviously, things in my life are different now. I'm not active no more. So I couldn't see myself going back to prison. I'm not part of the home team. It wouldn't be fun no more. I left prison in good standings. I left prison, you know, I've heard people say this before, and I can still say this. I left prison in good standings. And there's nothing in my C file. I don't got no smut, no dirt. I fell out of good standings with the organization, but I left prison in good standings. I didn't hit no SNY. I didn't debrief. I didn't go through none of that shit. I know at the end of the day, in my situation, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, you know, could I ever see myself going back? Hell no. You know, like I said, it's a part of my past. It's a part of a phase that I went through. You know, I can't say that I would never go back. It's hard to fathom that thought, to even think about it. But, you know, who knows? Anything could happen to any one of us, including you. Somebody could run up on me out there on the streets, and something could happen, and it gets taken too far, and then I find myself in a bad situation. So those possibilities, those types of things, they're still out there. But I'm not running around in the criminal element no more. I'm not running around out there trying to generate money. I'm not involved in criminal activities 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. That's not my life no more. You know, I'm in a different place now. I don't put myself in those situations no more. But, you know, my point is when I reflect back on it, you know, Corcoran it was a huge part of it, and it tested me. It tested me in a lot of different ways. It tested my resolve. It tested, you know, my will to continue playing that game. It tested my commitment, my loyalty to the people that you know, the organization. But I can tell you guys this straight up. I can tell you guys this. Even though it tested me in these different ways, I can honestly tell you guys, look you dead in the face, dead in the eyes, and tell you that it never got to the point where I ever thought about tapping out or considered walking away because it just got too thick. There was just there was too much going on, or I started to fear that I was going to get killed out there on the yard. It never even crossed my mind. That's just not me. It's not in my DNA. I I never thought about that. You know, I know Corcoran broke a lot of people. I've said that many times, and I'm going to continue to say it every time I talk about it. It broke a lot of people, not just North Daniels, everybody, every race, every different affiliation. I seen it. I watched it happen. Dudes that you would think would, you know, stay committed to what they, you know, that lifestyle that they were living, but it just got to be too much, whether it was mental. You know, these prisons, Corcoran and Pelican Bay were designed to break you. Mentally, they were designed to break you. You're the way that you're locked up, you're secluded, you're isolated. It's a fucked up trip, man. You know, you got to be mentally strong to be able to go into those types of environments and weather that shit, man, to be able to get through it. Just the average person that hasn't went to prison, the average person couldn't deal with those types of environments. You hear about prison, you see it on TV, a lot of it's watered down. You know, unless you've really been there, you can't understand the real extent of everything that's really involved. You're in a situation, the motherfucking, they call it the concrete jungle. You're in a situation where you're literally fighting for your survival, and your ability to navigate through different situations is gonna your survival is gonna depend on that. It really does. Politics, all that shit. You know, I've dealt with adversity. I've been up against adversity all my life in different forms, different ways, not just going to prison, but just in general, just the life, the path that I took. Adversity comes with it. But Corcoran definitely gave me a run for my money. You know, I know a lot of dudes that didn't go through Corcoran, they're lucky, because Corcoran broke a lot of people, but I think it would have broke a lot more. A lot of those dudes that came from, you know, one of the viewers had made a comment the other day that said something to the effect of, hey, they're saying that the Corcoran Wars didn't really start in Corcoran. It started somewhere else. And there's some truth to that. So, I mean, you know, I talked about the Corcoran Wars, but if you really want to go back before the Corcoran Wars, it really started in like Folsom and into Tehachapi. That's where the majority of the guys that were in Corcoran, that's where they came from. They came from those two prisons, Folsom and Tehachapi. You know, in the 80s, late 80s, that's when it was really crazy. I heard other stories that, you know, where the games that were being played back in those days, man, it was a little different from when I was there. But, you know, I've heard some of the stories of guys that were there when it first opened up from the late 80s, and it was crazy when it first, like some of the first guys that hit the SHU, the first ones that hit the tier. I'm talking about when the tiers were empty and they just started walking people in. The first ones to go out to the yard, I heard some crazy stories, man. You know, by the time I got there, it was already in motion. It was already into it. You know, the war had already started. It had escalated, and it would continue to go on. You know, I told you guys that all of us that went to Corcoran at one point in time, either depending on if you ended up paroling or if you were still there, everybody that was involved in the Corcoran wars that were out there on the yards fighting, at some point they were approached by the attorneys that were litigating that case. You know, I told you guys that I was approached by some of those attorneys when I was in San Quentin. And, you know, I didn't want nothing to do with the case. I was still active at the time. And, you know, even though I wanted to see the officers that were perpetuating that war, I wanted to see them get held accountable for all the people that they killed. I wasn't going to be a part of that case. I didn't want to be a part of it like that. You know, I talked to them and let them know, yeah, you know, I was out there on the yards. I went through my little situations, but as far as, you know, giving you guys an affidavit, a statement about, you know, what I went through, I'm good, man. You know, a lot of dudes jumped on that bandwagon. A lot of them jumped on that bandwagon and, you know, they tried to help bring those officers down. But when you're active and you have that and you function under that mindset, that belief system, even that was a form of telling. Even though they're cops, it's still you're going to court against somebody and you're trying to get them in trouble. You're trying to get them caught up in the criminal justice system. So, you know, that's kind of how I was looking at it. It's like I want to see them held accountable, but I'm not going to have nothing to do with that. And besides that, when you're active, you don't want to get involved in that type of case. I mean, I've been involved in cases where there were monetary you know, awards that you like civil lawsuits where people were getting sued or you know, something like that, and they were cashing somebody out, or I would get cashed out. That's different. But this was a criminal case. So, you know, a lot of guys that I talked to over the years that had been through Corcoran, a lot of the guys that got shot, those were the main ones that they were trying to get on, you know, that bandwagon. There was a lot of them that got shot in the leg. Big Chente Arroyo got shot in the butt. Bad boy, or not bad boy, Diablo got shot. Cub got shot from Cub from Fresno. There was a lot of homeboys that got shot. Some of them got killed. A lot of Africanos got shot. Some of them took leg shots. And you know that case went on. It drug on for a long time until they finally acquitted the officers that were involved. And I knew that was going to happen. That was the other reason why, you know, I didn't want it to have nothing to do with that case. I knew it was just going to be a big sham. You know, they're going to run them through the courts, but at the end of the day, they were going to find them not guilty, like they always do. It is what it is. But now I remember when it was all going on, hearing stories about how those officers that were considered the whistleblowers were out there facing all kind of retaliation. You know, they were getting pressed, man. I heard some stories about how they were driving home and they would almost get run off the road, or how somebody tried to you know, firebomb their houses, and just they were playing games with these guys like that, trying to get them not to testify in that court. It got kind of messy for a minute, you know, and then you had that whole green wall shit, and it was just crazy, man. But anyway, so the remainder of my time there in Corcoran, I would be on walk alone, and you know, eventually I would find a rhythm to where I just programmed. I got used to going out to the walk alone yard, and I knew they were going to keep me on walk alone for the duration of my time. I told you guys last time I went to my 115 hearing, the lieutenant put me on walk alone. I went to committee not too long after that. They affirmed it when I went to ICC, and they're the ones that told me, gave me another speech. Mr. Mendoza, You obviously you can't get along with other inmates. You gotta, you're showing a consistent pattern of physical altercations. Therefore, we're gonna keep you on walk alone. Like I really felt bad about that. It's like, don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? You're doing me a favor. If anything, I mean, I wanted to keep going out to the yard. I'm not gonna lie, but they were doing me a favor. You're helping me. You're making sure that basically I'm not gonna get killed out there, by your gunners. So that speech that they gave me, I laughed at that shit, man. But they told me that they were going to keep me on there for the duration of my time. I was only there for a couple more months, finishing up the violation that I pulled an 18-month violation on that because of the physical altercations that I got involved in. So by the time I paroled, I had 18 months in. Anyway, for those of you that done time, well, before I get into that, let me just say that. So, like I said, I fell into a rhythm while I was there, being on walk alone. I got used to going out to a night yard, basically to go out in the yard at all hours of the day, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, cold as fuck. I got used to eating my breakfast out there. I got used to it, and I ended up getting into a little routine where it just didn't bother me no more. I was like, fuck it. A lot of dudes that were on walk alone, most of them, well, I'm not going to say most of them, but a lot of them just, when it came to going to yard at 3 in the morning, they just passed. So, there was a lot of us that were on walk alone. And as this war continued to escalate and it continued to go on and on, more and more cats just got put on walk alone. That's how this eventually would end up ending. It would come to an end. Dudes that were going out there getting off that continue to do it, they would end up getting put on walk alone. Like I told you guys, the whole bedrock became obsolete because they didn't have enough room in bedrock to put walk alone. So they just like, fuck bedrock. Let's just keep them where they're at on walk alone. So eventually you had a lot of people that were just on walk alone, and you had new guys that would come in. They go out, get their money for a little bit, and then they'd end up getting put on walk alone. And it was a cycle just like that. So, during the time I was there, I got to see a lot of other fights. I mean, as much as I could. I'd hear about them more than see them. You can't see them. You're in the building, but you know who's going out, and you see everybody that's going to be involved. You see him go out the front gate, and you see him go into the little sally port, or that little enclosure right before the yard. They go out, and then sometimes you can hear the gun. Obviously, you can hear the alarms going off, and then they run them in. A lot of times you wouldn't even be able to tell dudes were getting in the fights. They come back in, they ain't leaking, there's no blood. They just come in, go out, come in. Walk them in, get medically cleared, send them back to their cells. That's it. Yard's done for the day. Next day, boom, let's do it again. So, during the time I was there, while I was on the tier, I got to see a few other homies come in and go out to the yard. And while I was there with them, I gave them as much advice, all the pointers, the different techniques and things that I learned out there. Some of the things that worked for me, some of the things that I told them to watch out for. I mean, I basically spent all my time, trying to help these individuals go out there and, while they were dealing with it, help them with everything that basically I learned. Like a lot of the other homies that were on walk alone were doing the same thing. So, that's what it was, man. Eventually, I would end up paroling. And for you guys that have done time in prison, I mean, man, you guys know. And it's obvious, but like paroling is the fucking best part. It's the best thing in the world, man. It's indescribable. The feeling that I used to get, it's almost a euphoric feeling, if there is one. Every time I got ready to parole, I remember that feeling, giving your freedom back, and just being able to know that You're going to get a chance to go out there and see your kids and see your family, people that you miss tremendously. You know that you're healthy and your mind's racing about things that you're gonna do. You're thinking about, if you drink, you're like, nah, I'm gonna go drink some fucking beer. You know what I mean? Obviously, you got an old lady. You know, I'm gonna go out there. You know what I'm saying? So you're thinking about all these things, all these different things, and that was the best part of the prison experience for me, was paroling. And I know that that goes without saying. It's probably everybody's. It's like, that's the obvious, getting the fuck up out of there. But you know, you go to R&R, you dress out, get up out of that fucking nasty fucking clothing of theirs. It's like you're shedding that shit, leaving it behind. You get into some fresh fits, and you know, you're sitting there on the bench and your mind's just racing. I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna go over, and you're healthy. You're healthy as a motherfucker, man. Got your swells on, and you're ready, man. You know what I'm saying? You're ready. That was the best feeling in the world. I remember every time getting myself pumped up, ready to go back out to the streets. So, like I said, eventually that time would come. At that time, in 92, I was with my daughter's mother. We were together. I believe she sent my parole clothes. And no. Matter of fact, I wasn't with her yet. I would get out and I would end up well, I met her, but we weren't really technically together yet. So I believe at that time my mom was still alive, and well, she was definitely still alive. She sent my parole clothes, and you know, I would end up paroling. Now from Corcoran, during that time, I was on high control parole, so they shot me back to San Quentin, probably like 10 to 14 days before my parole date. That was high control parole, because I was affiliated, because I was, you know, validated. I had to go through the closest prison, that was a prison that was close to wherever I was paroling to. Being that I was paroling in San Francisco, San Quentin was the closest prison in that area. Now, you know, it's a trip, man. You know, like when I was talking about going back to prison and just sometimes reflecting back on that experience, you know, I was listening to somebody the other day. I very rarely watch YouTubers, other YouTube channels, because I'm just, not because I don't want to, or not because I think I'm too good to watch somebody else's channel, or because I'm beefing with them or anything like that. It's just, I don't have time. I'm always working on my content. But it was a trip, you know, that I was listening to somebody, and this dude was just talking about, yeah, you know, that he was a dropout, but he's like, you know, I paroled, and you know, I'm still good. And you know, there's nothing on my name, and blah blah blah, and all this and that. And you know, I could say the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I didn't parole with anything on my jacket. I left prison on good standings. I didn't debrief. I ain't got no foul shit on my jacket, in my file. I left prison in good standings. So anyway, I remember that day when I'm sitting there in Corcoran, and you know, I had, the day that I wasn't gonna parole that day, because like I told you guys, I had to get transferred to San Quentin. But still, you know, when you get down to those 14 days and just the parole, it's happening. You're getting ready to get put on a bus so that you could go to another prison. It's part of the whole parole process. So you're pumped. You know, when I was leaving Corcoran, there was a part of me, man, that I felt bad. You know, I had a genuine affinity for my people, and there was a lot of good brothers that I had a lot of love and respect for them, and I was leaving them behind in a war, and I felt bad about that. You know, there's nothing I could do. You know, that's part of the game. I mean, what could I do? I went there, I did what I was supposed to do, I did everything that was expected of me. But these are some good brothers that I had bonds with, and now I was leaving them behind in this war. you know, it's a fucked up feeling. It's bittersweet. On one hand, I'm pumped up about getting ready to go home, but on the other hand, you know, I'm leaving some good people behind. And some of them could end up falling victim on those yards. You know, some of them could have got shot and killed, and some of them did. None of the ones that were in my building that I knew personally, but you know, the killings were still happening after I paroled. I would hear about it when I got out there on the streets. You know, so I would end up going back to Corcoran years later on another violation, or I did a couple violations actually, but this was long after the Corcoran SHU wars were over. The big group yards were shut down. They brought all the dog kennels in, and you know, it was part of history now. You know, and like I said, you know, there's a lot of times where I reflect back on it. And again, I can't see myself going back to prison. You know, I can't see myself for a number of reasons. You know, some of the main reasons is because I enjoy my freedom now and I'm in a better place. But at the same time, you know, like I said, I'm no longer active. I left prison in good standings. You know, I didn't go through an SNY yard. I didn't debrief. I don't got no funny shit on my jacket. I don't got nothing in my C file, nothing foul, no R's, nothing like that. I paroled in good standings. I ended up falling out with my people. That's, you know, but that's enough to discourage me from wanting to go back, because you know, I wouldn't want to go hit one of those SMY yards. I wouldn't want to go through all that shit. I'm good, you know. So, you know, there's times when I reflect back on these things and I think about it, you know. But I can tell you guys straight up again that when I think back and I look back on my past and everything that I've been through, it's just a phase that I went through now in my life. I can't really see myself going back. I can't, you know. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I can't see it. So that day it would eventually come up. I remember the morning that I was set to leave. I remember the tower popped my door. He popped my door, didn't open it, just popped it, boom, pop, and shut it, right? And basically was letting me know, hey, get ready, to come to get you. So I mean, again, it was bittersweet leaving, man. You know, thinking about everything that I had went through during my stay there, thinking about all the homies that I was leaving behind, some of the homies that got killed there. Walking up out of there though, I felt a measure of, you know, I felt proud, man, that you know, that I had made it through that phase of, you know, just going through Corcoran, going through that phase, that war that transpired over there. I remember going to R&R, dressing out, and then getting put on a you know a bus to San Quentin. I would end up going to San Quentin. I'd stay over there for, I don't know, 10 days, whatever, 10 days. And then I didn't even get to hit the yard over there. You know, whenever you go back to an institution like that, it takes you like a week, about a week to hit ICC. And even if I would have went to committee, they still wouldn't have let me go out to the yard. But you know, I went over there at that time. I'm good. I want to say I hit East Block because C section didn't open up until later. So I ended up hitting East Block, and I was there on the tier with the homies, and I got to kick it for, you know, good 10 days. Didn't make it out to the yard, but that day came, boom, and I paroled. I ended up paroling, and again, it's the best feeling in the world, man. Getting out, hitting that first fucking that first 40. Alcohol was always something that I used to help me decompress. You know, for a lot of us that had issues like PTSD, you know, just issues from being in those types of isolated environments, I'd usually take me about 2 or 3 months for all that shit to wear off, man, before, I would transition back out from that prison world back out to that free world, back out to society. It would take me about 3 months. And alcohol it helped it helped me deal with a lot of the anxiety and all the things that I was feeling from being out. It's crazy, man, but there was a couple times where I honestly felt like I needed to go back to prison. I wanted to go back. I was freaking out. I was like, I don't know how to act out here. I don't know how to interact with other people. I don't know how to walk, talk, sit. I don't know how to be one of them no more. And a lot of it's just mental, but I was fucking myself up mentally. It was like, man, they're all looking at me, man. They're watching me because I'm standing out, but it was just in my mind. Nobody watching me. Nobody give a fuck. They probably look at me and look at that stupid ass. He just got out of prison, but ain't nobody watching me. But that's how it was affecting me. I couldn't go into a store, just the things, the everyday things that we do out here and we take for granted. Those are the things that I could not do. Go into a grocery store and buy a couple items of food, stand there in line and be a regular person while I was standing there. How a regular person would just stand there and kind of just look around and, maybe grab your cell phone, look at your cell phone, and, not really tripping off the other people. And you're used to moving around like that. You're used to interacting with people. You're used to, you know, carrying yourself like they do is the best way that I'm trying to describe it. But when you get out of prison and you don't know how to you don't know how to act like that. I'm standing there fucking all tensed up. My palms are sweating. I'm making eye contact with people like I'm still in prison. Like somebody makes eye contact with me right away, boom, I get aggressive. I'm thinking like, you're looking at me because you're a threat now. What's up, man? What the fuck you looking at? You know what I mean? I had to get that. It took 3 months almost every time to get that off me, man, to where I was able to be regular again, man. My family, a lot of the times they're the ones that seen it. You got that prison shit. It's a part of you, man. You need to get that shit out of you. You know what I mean? I can just see it all over you. You're not yourself no more. My mom, continued to say that, institutionalized. So being institutionalized, what is it? It's feeling like you need to carry a fucking weapon, a pedazo, everywhere that you go, because you don't know what you're going to encounter when you hit the chow hall, or when you go back to the cell. Being institutionalized is being okay, being locked in a cell 24 hours a day, finding ways to keep yourself occupied, keep yourself busy mentally and physically. It's being able to deal with the daily strains of prison life in that environment. It's the politics. That's all part of being institutionalized. I knew I was institutionalized because of the way that I acted when I got out on the streets. I didn't know how to act. So I think it's all about personal opinion, man. When I hear some of these guys talk about institutionalized and what, some of these guys that claim to be are not institutionalized. You can't spend a fucking year in the county jail and say you're institutionalized. It just don't work like that. You can't go to boot camp or fire camp and be there for 2 years and say that you're institutionalized. Nah, man, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody like me, or somebody, that's done time like me, that has done 10, 15 years in the SHU program, that has given up decades of their life in that environment. I was able to continue to, I was able to continue to function and live in that environment because I was institutionalized. I knew how to live in prison. So I don't know how you can, some of us can say that we weren't, especially if you've done a lot of time. You're just lying to yourself, man. But anyway, I'm just rambling now, man. Let me just say this before I bring this to an end right here, before I go to my next episode. Now that the Corcoran part of it is over, if you guys have questions about the Corcoran, the things that I went through in Corcoran, if there's still more questions, submit those questions. Go ahead and drop them either in the comments, or you can put them in the community somewhere, and I'll answer them either in the Q&A or during another episode of Inner Demons. Because if there's stuff that you guys still want me to elaborate on that I haven't really touched on, I want to make sure that I answer all those questions. Other than that, 1990, this was 1993. So I paroled to San Francisco. And, let me just say this. So I mentioned this during one of my past episodes, but, talking about inner demons and war stories, a lot of the things that I talk about in war stories, I talk about in inner demons. It's just inner demons is basically an entire walk through my whole past, everything that I've been through from beginning to end. War stories are different times throughout my entire life where I got into situations where either acts of violence or some of my robberies or some of the crimes that I was involved in out there. That's what war stories are. So both of these series, I talk about a lot of the same stuff. So like I'm coming up on the situation that I had with Duck and Marlene. And because I talked about it in war stories, I'm going to bypass it in Inner Demons. There's no use for me to talk about it twice. There's some things like that I can remember, and I'm just gonna, breeze through them because I clearly remember talking about them in war stories. And then there's gonna be little things that I do talk about in both of them because it's just part of what happened when I got out of prison. So, I would get out in 1993 after Corcoran, and I would stay out. I want to say for this time right here, I stayed out 1 month. I'm going to get into that in the next episode of Inner Demons, episode 39. At that time, I was out there committing a lot of strong arm robberies. I would end up linking up with the good homie out there that I embraced as my brother. We called each other brothers. But there was actually 3 cats that I would kick it with at different times. When one of them would be out, the other one would be in prison. Just a matter of running into each other. But all 3 of these cats, whenever I would hook up with them, we were always up to no good. We were hitting licks, robberies, socking cats up, beating people up out there. That's what we used to do. Gang banging, fighting, it's all the dumb shit. So anyways, like I said, I know that there's probably some of you that are wanting me to continue to keep talking about Corcoran or wanting me to keep, going into these different squabbles that I had and continue to just talk about different incidents. And I wish I could, but that part of this story is coming to an end. There's, like I said, you guys got questions. There's certain things you want me to go over. I'll bring them up in some of the future episodes. But for now, that part of it is a wrap. It's cookies, man. So that pretty much wraps it up for episode 38. I know this one was a short one. However, I wanted to get one out to you guys. Again, it was another hard week. I ended up putting in a KNS cold air intake in my truck. So that kind of took me out for a day or two. Even though it only took me an hour, it just still fucking threw me off for a couple days with some other shit that was going on as well. But I'm gonna try to get out of war stories and another couple inner demons and get it back up and on track. Again, there's a bunch of other things that are coming up that I'm gonna be talking about in inner demons. So don't think that just because I'm done with the Corcoran part of it, that it's a wrap, it's over. There's still a lot of good shit to cover. There's still a lot of good things to cover that I haven't covered in war stories. So let's get it. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys enjoyed that part of it. Straight J-catting off like a motherfucker, man. Anyways, with that being said, man, this episode 38, your boy B, and I'm out.